Good morning. Thank you for watching Amir Shakil 5858. I'm Amir Budnam. I am thankful to all news resources and my team. Following are the news which have been reported by American, European, Asian, Canadian, Australian, and African channels, and of course AFP, AP, and Reuters news agencies. Now the headlines. Protest in Greece and in Israel for ceasefire in Gaza. Israeli government determined to eradicate Hamas. Rise of far-right parties in European Union elections. Mbappe joins a new club. Record-breaking 642 million people cast their vote in Indian elections. Due to heat, 25 people died in India. First woman win presidential elections in Mexico. Jury selected in Delaware in Hunter Biden's gun trial case. CDC chairman grilled by Congress for COVID-19 virus. 4 more hostages in Gaza died. Ukrainian president is in Philippines. Mr. Biden's executive order regarding immigration at Mexico-US border. Wildfire in California. Toyota chairman apologized. On Wall Street, Dow Jones Industrial lost, S&P 500 and Nasdaq gains. Murder of indigenous woman and girl in Canada. Nuclear waste in Canada. 14 Palestinians died in Israeli bombing yesterday. Water main breaks in Atlanta.
On this Monday night, new echoes of Germany's Nazi past. Fears for the future as the far right rises again.
They want to get rid of basically everybody who has a migrant background.
Our Donna Friesen reports from Berlin. Plenty of promises, too little action.
I think that we need more than commitments.
The criticism the feds have failed, missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Where should nuclear waste be buried? Difficult decisions dividing some Canadian communities. And Canada finally clinches a spot in the Stanley Cup final. Oilers, let's go! The hopes Edmonton will bring home the hardware.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Paula Nasser.
Good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. This week, we will be bringing you reports from Europe covering the lead up to D-Day on June 6th, the turning point in the Second World War that led to the defeat of the Nazis 80 years ago. And as the world prepares to commemorate this historic anniversary, a new but familiar battle is being waged in Europe. Extreme far-right sentiments, once buried under the weight of history, are surfacing with alarming force. This year, D-Day, June 6th, will also see elections for the European Parliament, and it's feared Europe may be once again going down a dark path. Donna Friesen is in the German capital.
I'm at the Brandenburg Gate in the heart of Berlin, a city where the Nazis were finally defeated in 1945 and Adolf Hitler took his own life. Now something unthinkable is happening. A nationalist, anti-immigrant, far-right party is on the rise here. Its leaders use Nazi slogans and sound like descendants of history's tyrants. It's a party at a German resort, and listen to what they're chanting. Deutschland for Deutsche, Germany for the Germans. These young people are singing Nazi slogans. Ausländer raus means foreigners out. And this is the Nazi salute, a chilling example of how the far right is coming out of the shadows in Germany. The country has strict laws banning Nazi phrases, gestures, and symbols, but they're increasingly being ignored. This is Chemnitz, a former East German city known as a hub for extremists. Uwe Chubala runs Shalom restaurant here and tells me anti-Semitism that used to exist beneath the surface is now out in the open.
100%, also 100%.
And it's the worst it's been, he says, since the Nazi era. A pig's head marked with the Star of David was left on his doorstep, and a group of men attacked his restaurant with rocks. Violent anti-immigrant groups roamed Chemnitz, threatening and attacking people after a local man was stabbed and killed by a Syrian.
And the Second World War was not that long ago. Have people forgotten?
Das weiß ich nicht.
I don't know, he says. It's not just anti-Semitism. Supporters of the far right believe Germany is no longer German enough. The too many immigrants and asylum seekers have been allowed in. And a new far-right party, the AfD, is capitalizing on that. Formed in 2013, polling shows it's now the second most popular party in Germany. It's poised to win power in 3 German states and Berlin.
Tomorrow, Donna will look at the European immigration crisis fueling the rise of the far right, and later this week, she'll be reporting from France for our special coverage of D-Day's 80th anniversary. We have some breaking news from Alberta, where cameras were rolling when what appears to be a tornado struck this afternoon. Take a look at this. Oh my God. This is near the village of Edinburgh, about 90 minutes southeast of Edmonton. You can see what appears to be a tornado touching down in some nearby fields. From what we understand, no damage has been reported. Tornado watches are in effect for this area and for other parts of east central Alberta. In Cuba, one person's dead after a vehicle collision involving a bus carrying dozens of Quebec tourists. The accident happened yesterday when a car collided with the bus and caused it to overturn. The driver of the car was killed, while 26 people on the bus were injured. Mike Armstrong has more.
This is video shared on social media showing a bus that had been carrying Canadians. According to Air Transat, there were 38 passengers on board. They were on their way to the Santa Clara airport in Cuba for a flight back to Montreal. The bus collided with a car and rolled over. The driver of that vehicle, according to local media, was killed.
On essayait de se dépêcher de sortir le plus rapidement possible.
This Canadian passenger says people on the bus tried to get out as quickly as possible, but struggled to get an emergency exit door open. There was a strong smell of gasoline. Now, the accident happened in a town only about 15 minutes from the airport. There were reports 26 people needed medical attention, including 6 children. Some were taken first to a local hospital, but were then transferred to a pediatric hospital and another facility in Santa Clara. One person is described as being in serious condition. Air Transat says it's found accommodations in nearby hotels for passengers who are still under observation or injured. It's working on a repatriation flight to get people home. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
In Israel tonight, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is facing intense pressure from within his government. It all has to do with a ceasefire deal it proposed that involves some concessions with Hamas. Tonight, one of Netanyahu's top lieutenants is saying there's no way he would support any deal that falls short of obliterating Hamas. First ending Hamas. He's threatening to break up the government unless the proposal is scrapped. The latest snag in the peace talks also means Israel's assault on Gaza is not letting up. Today, an attack on a home in central Gaza killed 4 members of the family, including 3 children. Indigenous communities received a long overdue apology from the University of Manitoba today over remains and important cultural objects that were stolen.
The University of Manitoba recognizes that healing begins with this university apologizing to the people we have profoundly hurt and deeply harmed.
The university's president formally apologizing to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis for its history of taking ancestral remains, burial belongings, and cultural heritage without consent. Part of a respectful rematriation and repatriation ceremony acknowledging the harms it caused and to help with healing. Efforts are underway to return the items to their rightful communities. The National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations is blasting the federal government for failing to do more to address the ongoing crisis of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls. Today marks 5 years since the National Inquiry's final report. It listed more than 200 calls to action to help combat the epidemic. But Cindy Woodhouse-Nipanak says most of them have not been fulfilled. Mackenzie Gray joins us now with more on the allegations as well as the government's response to them. Mackenzie.
The Prime Minister has always maintained his most important relationship is with Indigenous people, but one of Canada's most influential First Nations leaders is firing back at Justin Trudeau.
Even though there has been commitments by words, I think that we need more than commitments, we need action.
Assembly First Nations Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nipanak calling on the federal government to follow through on implementing the calls to justice from the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls report on its 5-year anniversary.
Regrettably, the report's findings indicate that only 2 of the calls for justice impacting First Nations have been fully implemented over the past 5 years. With the majority showing minimal to no progress, this failure is not acceptable to our people.
And I will have to take issue with that particular number.
The Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations disputing the government has only implemented 2 of the 231 recommendations.
Roughly 107 have been advanced by us, which is solely in the federal jurisdiction or shared jurisdiction, and 53 more have been, which are broadly advanced, have been addressed by us.
While jurisdictional issues play a role in implementing actions, key calls including establishing a National Indigenous Human Rights Ombudsperson and a National Indigenous Human Rights Tribunal have not been implemented, despite being in the purview of the federal government.
This is appalling because the Prime Minister called the current crisis of violence against Indigenous women and girls an ongoing genocide.
While the politics play out, Indigenous women continue to be at risk, as the 2019 report says they are 12 times more likely to be missing or murdered compared to non-Indigenous people. Farah.
Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa, thank you. Never before disclosed. Coming up, what we're learning from the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Interference. Never before
12 times more likely to be missing or murdered compared to non-Indigenous people. Farah.
Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa, thank you. Never before disclosed. Coming up, what we're learning from the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Interference. The federal government is launching 2 new pilot programs to provide caregivers from abroad with permanent residency in this country.
For decades, generations of foreign domestic workers and caregivers have fought hard for this recognition. I believe these changes will provide families with the services they need and continue to advance protections for home care workers.
Immigration Minister Mark Miller says caregivers hoping to work in Canada will be able to apply for the programs if they meet certain criteria, including having a job offer. Once they arrive here, they will be given permanent resident status. The new program will replace one set to end in 2 weeks. Also on Parliament Hill today, another key report on foreign interference, this time by a special all-party committee of MPs. Members of the National Security Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, or NSICOP, have security clearance to be able to review top-secret classified material and conduct its own review over allegations of foreign meddling in Canada's last 2 elections. Our chief political correspondent, David Aiken, joins us now. David, what's new in NSICOP's own take on this issue?
Well, first of all, Farah, we have what seems to be a never-before-disclosed incident of foreign interference. The NSICOP report says that a member of parliament, quote, wittingly provided information to a foreign state. Now, NSICOP's members are clear to see the top-secret CSIS information about this briefings. Farah.
David Aiken in Ottawa. Thank you, David. Where should Canada put tons of radioactive waste? Coming up, the question creating rifts in some communities. It has been more than a decade since the Nuclear Waste Management Organization began looking for a permanent place to dispose of Canada's spent fuel. 22 potential sites have now been narrowed down to 2, both in Ontario. As Eric Sorensen explains, those communities are now weighing the risks and benefits of becoming the final resting place of nuclear waste.
Where to bury Canada's most radioactive nuclear waste? In tree-covered northern Ontario or rolling farmland in the south? In South Bruce, some farmers are willing to sell their land. Some, clearly, are not. Jim and Sharon McDonald's family have farmed here for generations.
I completely don't want it. This is right beside my family.
In South Bruce, this could be, in effect, ground zero. The Nuclear Waste Management Organization.
Keeping hope alive next to hysteria in Edmonton after the Oilers reach the Stanley Cup final. A Canadian team hasn't hoisted hockey's ultimate prize in over 3 decades. But don't lose hope, because Edmonton is keeping the dream alive. Last night, the Oilers were crowned best in the West, advancing to the Stanley Cup final after beating the Dallas Stars in Game 6. And already, as Heather Yerkes West explains, Canadians from coast to coast to coast are riding the Oilers bandwagon.
Edmonton elated.
It's crazy, I can't believe it! Go Edmonton!
We got the W, we believe, Oilers!
Saturday night, Heather Yerkes West, Global News, Calgary.
And the country will be watching. That's it for Global National for this Monday night. I'm Farah Nasser. On behalf of our whole crew here, I want to thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.
Hey, I'm Jeff Bennett.
And I'm Amna Navaz. On the NewsHour tonight, Claudia Sheinbaum becomes the first woman to win Mexico's presidential election. What that means for U.S. relations.
The jury is selected in Delaware in the federal gun trial of President Biden's son, Hunter.
And Dr. Anthony Fauci is grilled by House Republicans over the origins of and his response to COVID-19.
I don't think the concept of there being a lab leak is inherently a conspiracy theory.
Major funding for the PBS NewsHour has been provided by the ongoing support of these individuals and institutions, and friends of the NewsHour, including Leonard and Norma Clorfine, and the Judy and Peter Bloom Kovler Foundation.
2 retiring executives turn their focus.
Thank you.
I'm Stephanie Tsai with NewsHour West. Here are the latest headlines. Israel has confirmed the death of 4 more hostages that were taken by Hamas on October 7th. Israel's military says the men were killed in the Gaza city of Khan Yunis while its forces were operating there earlier this year. They've been identified as Amiram Cooper, Yoram Metzger, Haim Perry, and Nadav Popplewell. 3 of them had appeared in a hostage video last December pleading for their release. The causes of death are still under investigation. Meanwhile, mediators wait for word from Hamas on a 3-phase ceasefire proposal announced by President Biden on Friday. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said today the ball is in Hamas's court.
If you look at the major elements of this proposal, they are nearly identical to the major elements of the proposal that Hamas submitted several weeks ago. This is a serious enough proposal that Hamas should just accept it, but if there need to be further negotiations, we think those are all
killed overnight in 2 separate Israeli airstrikes on refugee camps. 3 children were reportedly among the dead. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky made a surprise visit to the Philippines today as part of a rare trip to Asia. He's trying to drum up support for an upcoming peace conference on the war in Ukraine, scheduled for mid-June in Switzerland. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. rolled out the red carpet for Zelensky and pledged to join the summit. Zelensky announced that Ukraine would open an embassy in Manila, deepening ties between the countries.
We are very thankful to be in your country and which supports Ukraine, our territorial integrity and sovereignty. Thank you so much for your big word and clear position about us, about this Russian occupation of our territories.
President Biden is expected to issue an executive order tomorrow that would significantly limit the entry of migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border. The NewsHour has learned the order would shut down asylum requests when the number of daily encounters between ports of entry reaches 2,500. The border would then reopen only when that number falls to 1,500. This effectively means that the border would be closed immediately as current levels are above 2,500. Biden is expected to announce the measure at the White House on Tuesday. A Georgia appeals court has set October 4th as the tentative date for a hearing on efforts to remove Fani Willis from Donald Trump's Georgia election case. The Fulton County District Attorney was allowed to stay on the case in March after admitting to a romantic relationship with a special prosecutor she had hired. Trump lawyers have appealed that decision. The timing of the hearing means that Trump won't face trial in Georgia before the November election.
Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee has announced that she has pancreatic cancer. The Texas Democrat acknowledged in a statement that the road ahead will not be easy. But she added, "I am confident that my doctors have developed the best possible plan to target my specific disease." The 74-year-old says she may miss some time in Congress while getting treatment, but aims to be present for votes. Jackson Lee is seeking a 16th term in Congress. Firefighters in California are reining in the state's largest wildfire so far this year. The blaze is 75% contained. Over the weekend, the Corral fire burned more than 22 square miles between San Francisco Bay and the Central Valley. Thousands were ordered to evacuate, though they have since been allowed to return home. One house was destroyed and 2 firefighters were injured. Firefighters hope to make more progress before an expected heat wave tomorrow. Electric utility Pacific Power has agreed to a $178 million settlement over deadly 2020 wildfires that raged in Oregon. Last June, a jury found the company liable for failing to cut power despite warnings from fire officials. 9 people were killed and thousands of homes were destroyed. More than 400 plaintiffs will share the settlement. Toyota's chairman has apologized for widespread cheating on vehicle certification tests. An internal investigation ordered by Japan's government found the company manipulated data in collision tests, airbag inflation tests, and more. The automaker is suspending production of 3 of the affected models: the Corolla Fielder, Corolla Axio, and Yaris Cross. The company says the findings do not affect the safety of vehicles already on the road. At a press conference today, Toyota's chairman acknowledged that the correct certification process had not been followed.
As the person responsible for the Toyota Group, I would like to sincerely apologize to our customers, car enthusiasts, and all stakeholders for the problems that have occurred within the group. I am truly sorry.
Toyota's rival Mazda reported similar irregularities with its testing today and suspended production of 2 of its models. CEOs at the largest publicly traded companies in the U.S. saw a healthy bump in pay last year. Data analyzed for the Associated Press found that the median pay package for CEOs rose to $16.3 million in 2023. That's a 12.6% gain from the year before. And it's far more than the average private sector worker, who saw a 4.1% bump. Of the 341 CEOs surveyed, only 25 were women. And the long-abandoned Michigan Central train station in Detroit has been given a new life. The building fell into disrepair after the last train pulled out in 1988. Many saw it as a symbol of the Motor City's decline. Well, today it has been reborn, thanks to a 6-year, multi-million-dollar renovation. But instead of trains, the building will be a center for technology as part of Ford Motor's new Mobility Innovation District. Still to come on the NewsHour, Tamara Keith and Amy Walter break down the latest political headlines. A new exhibit chronicles the prolific career of artist Michael Lindsay Hogg. And a first-of-its-kind medical school for Native American doctors graduates its inaugural class.
This is the PBS NewsHour from WETA Studios in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.
Mexico made history yesterday, electing its first female president and first president of Jewish heritage. Claudia Sheinbaum won in a landslide with more than 58% of the vote. And join us again here tomorrow night for a look at why some universities are returning to using standardized testing in their admissions process. And that is the NewsHour for tonight. I'm Jeff Bennett.
And I'm Amna Navaz on behalf of the entire news.
Tonight, breaking news, a Hunter Biden trial begins. The First Lady there in court to support him. In New York City, 2 NYPD officers shot and wounded. News on the suspect. And breaking news on the border with Mexico, what President Biden plans to do. And the shark attack off the coast, the swimmer punching the shark to survive. First tonight, Hunter Biden's gun trial begins. The first trial of a child of a sitting president. The First Lady there in that courtroom. Also developing President Biden preparing a new executive order. A crackdown on the Mexico border. It would shut down the border immediately to asylum seekers if daily migrant numbers hit 2,500. And what we're learning about this. In New York City tonight, those 2 NYPD officers shot and wounded, chasing a robbery suspect. One shot in the chest, saved by his bulletproof vest. But authorities have now revealed about the suspect. This major heat wave already building tonight, temperatures well into the triple digits across several states, and the wildfire burning in California. The swimmer attacked by a shark off the coast, bitten on the chest, arm, and hand. Witnesses on how the swimmer survived. Israel's war with Hamas tonight, the Israeli military now confirming the deaths of 4 more hostages in Gaza. Here in the U.S. tonight, the heated testimony on the Hill, Dr. Anthony Fauci defending his handling of the COVID pandemic, and Fauci turning deeply emotional when revealing the death threats against his family. The accused serial killer outside New York City, the new report tonight indicating new charges could now be coming after this newest search of his home. And after 41 seasons of Wheel of Fortune, the final week for Pat Sajak. Tonight here, the interview with Sajak by someone he knows very well. And what he says when asked, could you have kept on going?
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York.
That's it. Tonight, the president's son on trial. A jury just seated. What we're learning about who they are. First Lady Jill Biden appears in court, sitting in the front row to show support as President Biden issues a rare statement about Hunter Biden.
It's not often, if ever, in American history that you have the son of a sitting president of the United States being charged with 3 federal felonies and standing trial.
What to expect from the trial? The CBS Evening News starts now.
Hunter Biden just left the courthouse where 6 men and 6 women have been seated in an American first, the first criminal trial for a child of a sitting president. Good evening, I'm Nora O'Donnell, and thank you for being with us. Those jurors were selected after attorneys on both sides questioned them about their views on gun rights, addiction, and politics. The president's only surviving son is charged with 3 felony counts related to his alleged illegal purchase and possession of a firearm in 2018. Tomorrow, the prosecution and the defense will present opening statements, which could include sordid details about Hunter Biden's love life and addiction battles. The First Lady was in the courtroom with the president not far, remaining at his home in Delaware. CBS's Scott McFarland was inside the courtroom for today's proceedings.
A show of support on the first day of trial for President Biden's son Hunter. First Lady Jill Biden, on her 73rd birthday, sat directly behind him. And in a rare statement on the case, the president said, "Jill and I love our son, and we're so proud of the man he is today." Hunter Biden is charged with making false statements when he bought a Colt 38 handgun 6 years ago by not acknowledging on the application he was... That case had to go to trial in September, nor that's just as the presidential race hits high gear.
Scott McFarland, thank you. Today, the Israeli military reported that 4 more hostages abducted in the October 7th attack are dead, and their bodies are still being held by Hamas.
Hamas continuing to refuse a truce without a permanent ceasefire. President Biden's outline may not be achievable, Nora, and that could mean many more months of war.
MTS Tie-Up, thank you. Here at home, dramatic images out of California show a wildfire devouring hillsides about an hour east of San Francisco. The Corral fire is the state's largest so far this year. Right now, it is about 75% contained, but this week, the fire danger is going to ramp up with blistering triple-digit temperatures. CBS Ben Tracy is on the scene in Northern California.
Fueled by fierce wind.
Yes, are you surprised by this?
You're absolutely right. They have a fire that was more than 14,000 acres.
Allowing him to partially shut down the asylum process at the southern border. CBS News was the... President Biden is under
temperatures up in because a heat dome, which is an area of high pressure that traps hot air like the lid on a boiling pot, that's about to hit the American West. And Nora, that is going to send temperatures up into the above 100 degrees, and that's going to raise the risk of more fires like this one.
Ben Tracy, thank you for being there. President Biden is under intense political pressure to curb illegal immigration. It's a top concern for voters and one that Donald Trump and his allies have seized on. And tomorrow, Biden is expected to take action, issuing a major executive order allowing him to partially shut...
Democrats prefer you don't hear Biden babbling to her. In a recent court filing, the Justice Department strongly opposing the release of audio from President Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur, citing concerns about potential AI manipulation. Remember, this was the same interview which revealed Biden's diminished mental competence and was a reason for not recommending criminal charges. In their effort to withhold the recording from the public, the DOJ, or DOJ, contends that the original audio falls under executive privilege and releasing it could hinder future investigations. But this shouldn't hold up in court, as deep fakes can be made from any audio of Biden's voice. Then again, the law is only a thing when it involves going after Trump. A transcript of the conversation is already public, but House Republicans believe that it may have been cleaned up from what Joe actually said, which is a relief for Biden's staff. They'd rather clean up what Joe said than what he did on the Oval Office rug. So while the audio hasn't been made public, turns out Joe actually recorded himself during the infamous Hur interview. We got our hands on it.
Oh, yeah, come on, that's right. Ask me any questions. The FBI knows my house better than I do. FBI! I was professor at the University of Pennsylvania. Amtrak. Get out of my face. I was the only white lifeguard in an all-black ski lodge. Get smart. I was president during COVID. Vice COVID. Barack Obama. The orange man bag. You could see the veins in their neck. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was there. I remember it like it was the crack of dawn.
That is frightening. Adam, do you see any validity to this argument at all?
No, I mean, I see what they're going with, because the less he speaks, the better he does. Like, his campaign manager is Britney Spears' dad.
Nice.
But I mean, he said, Donald Trump is the biggest threat to America, right behind stairs. But he keeps making stuff up. Like, he said that his one uncle was a cannibal.
Yep.
His other uncle got a Purple Heart. That didn't happen. I'm waiting for his next uncle to be good at rice, named Ben. All right, that one wasn't as good. Okay. I knew it as I was saying it. That wasn't the best.
But you know what? You jumped off the cliff, and that's why you're a comedian.
Yeah.
Kat, you're a legal scholar of the highest order.
A lot of people don't know that.
I know. And congratulations on your... I don't know why Gene started clapping.
Yeah, thanks, Gene. I appreciate it.
What do you make of this, the idea of recordings falling under executive privilege?
Well, under any circumstances, it would be very strange and I think unfair. I think more things should be declassified, more things, we should be allowed to see more things. But with this in particular, I'm also confused because considering the things of him that we do see.
Yes.
Ugh.
Yeah. What
could possibly be happening in these tapes? Because when we do see him speak, I'm not like, there's a man I'm confident in. You know what I mean? So what is happening on these tapes?
Wouldn't it be great if he was like Hunter, just doing big honking lines of blow? You know,
gotta be something crazy.
Brian, don't you wish they could edit Fox and Friends so you wouldn't look so idiotic? Don't turn on me. I'm doing it for you.
See, I'm this thing called likable, so you wouldn't know what that's like.
I think I was voted more trustworthy than you were.
By who?
By the Hollywood Reporter.
Right? I don't think so. So let's listen to this. To show you, if you weren't convinced my life was empty watching a hearing at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, now you're going to be sure of it. I actually read the transcript, and he sounds insane in the transcript. Robert Hur is desperate to get it back on track. He goes, "Thank you very much, sir, but can you please?"
Yeah.
The question, would you? And he just would ramble on and on. My sense is that they cleaned up that transcript remarkably, and they're going to worry about everything they've ever done. They cannot let this out. They cannot let this out. I think it is unbelievably marked up, and it still reads like a guy that's lost his head.
Do you think he himself during it?
Well, that's something that I'm going to let Dave ask.
That wouldn't show up in the transcript for sure, unless it goes.
You know, like.
Go, Dave.
As for whether he himself, depends.
That was my first thought.
And I didn't even write that one in advance. Come on.
Anything else? Or do you want to just sit back and go?
No,
I think I just exit this safely.
Can a panelist toss the commercial?
I do feel quite confident of everything I've done here today, but no, he's like a combination of Mr. Magoo and Mr. Burns. I mean, the guy has dementia and should be in an old age home. He should be in Shady Pines and nowhere near the White House.
But it just put a, what do you call it? Put a thing on it?
A bow.
A bow on it. This is total lack of transparency. Trump would never do this.
Of course.
He would show you everything, and sometimes he has. All right. Coming up, did you go too far shoving a WNBA star?
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page.
Tonight, the jury now seated in the historic trial of Hunter Biden on federal gun charges. Hunter Biden, now the first child of a sitting president to be criminally tried. First Lady Jill Biden making a surprise appearance in court, and Joe Biden's emotional message of support for his son. Plus, the potential witnesses. Could his brother Beau's widow be called to the stand? All this just 4 days after his father's 2024 rival Donald Trump was convicted on all 34 counts in his hush money trial. The new comments from Mr. Trump slamming his sentencing date. Also tonight, NBC News learning President Biden plans to sign a sweeping executive action on the border. What would give him the power to do? Wildfires burning thousands of acres in California with a dangerous heat wave on the way. Dr. Anthony Fauci grilled on Capitol Hill by Republicans on the origin of COVID. The moment he choked up describing death threats against his family and tensions erupting. Marjorie Taylor Greene refusing to call him a doctor. 4 more Israeli hostages confirmed dead as President Biden turns up the pressure on Israel for a ceasefire deal, saying, quote, the deal must get done. And after decades of decline, what's driving the Motor City's big comeback?
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome. Days after the first criminal conviction of a former president, another first is unfolding tonight in Delaware, where Hunter Biden has become the first offspring of a sitting president to face criminal charges. The trial began today for the president's son, who stands accused of 3 federal counts related to gun possession. Hunter Biden has pleaded not guilty. Today was jury selection with lawyers questioning dozens of prospective jurors before seating a panel late today. And in the courtroom for most of the day, First Lady Jill Biden. In a statement, the president avoiding direct comment on the case, but affirming the first couple's support for their son, saying we are so proud of the man he is today. Ryan Nobles is covering the trial.
Tonight, for the first time in American history, the child of a sitting president is facing a criminal trial. And now the 12-member jury is set. 6 men and 6 women, including 6 jurors who own guns themselves or have family members that purchased them recently. Hunter Biden, accused of lying on a federal form in 2018 to purchase a gun, checking a box saying he was not an active drug user, despite acknowledging in his book he was addicted to crack cocaine at the time. First Lady Jill Biden making a surprise appearance, sitting just a few feet behind her son in court. And the president offering his support, saying, as the president, I don't and won't comment on pending federal cases, but as a dad, I have boundless love for my son. President Biden spending Memorial Day weekend with Hunter, recently inviting him to state dinners and defending him publicly.
First of all, my son's done nothing wrong. I trust him. I have faith in him.
But his son's legal battles likely to take a political toll on the president.
Today, 4 more hostages confirmed dead in Gaza as pressure mounts on Israel to secure a ceasefire and hostage release deal. Also ahead, the Australian Defence Force looks to boost its ranks with permanent residents from 4 foreign nations. More than half of young Australians delaying having children as the cost of living bites. And the Matildas unveil their Paris Olympics team, including 8 players heading to their 3rd straight games. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Ross Childs. Israel has confirmed 4 more hostages abducted by Hamas last October are dead. The men have been identified as Chaim Perry, Yoram Metzger, Amir Cooper and British-Israeli Nadav Popplewell. They were among the 251 people taken by Hamas and other militants during the attacks on southern Israel on October the 7th. The Israeli military says new intelligence led to the assessment.
Children dying, it's just absolutely desperate.
John, thank you. The Australian Defence Force is looking to foreign citizens who are permanent residents of Australia to boost its ranks after struggling to recruit the personnel needed. Fiscal reporter Evan Manfield has more from Parliament House.
We know that the Australian Defence Force has been struggling to recruit and retain personnel, and so this is an effort to address this. From July this year, New Zealanders who are permanent residents in Australia and need to be.
Evelyn, thank you. Some breaking news for you. A man has been charged with murder over the death of a 21-year-old surfer who was allegedly stabbed in Coffs Harbour a month ago. Kai Schaefer died at Park Beach Reserve car park in May, and police have now charged a 36-year-old man with murder. We are expecting to hear from New South Wales Police later this hour with more details. We'll bring you that as soon as that news conference begins. That news just in. The New South Wales Government has announced a more than $111 million boost in mental health funding in this month's budget, saying the fatal Bondi attack in April highlighted cracks in the system. Part of the new funding will go to expanding community mental health teams across the state, creating extra positions. Reporter Chantal Al-Khoury has more.
So there are a couple of measures in this announcement. So the package is going to include some support for alternatives to long-term hospital care for people with complex mental health needs. Also, last year there were more than 124,000 people who went to New South Wales emergency departments presenting with mental health issues. So that's something that we're still saying there's a long way to go, but this is their first announcement ahead of the budget.
And if you need information or support, you can contact Beyond Blue on 1300 22 46 36, or if you or someone you know is experiencing distress, please contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. Queensland Police have charged a bus driver over a crash that killed a young woman in Brisbane CBD in March. Reporter Antonio O'Flaherty has more.
It was here on Edward Street in Brisbane CBD that bus and pedestrian crash occurred almost 3 months ago. Behind me, you can see a memorial for 18-year-old Tia Cameron, who died when police allege the Brisbane City Council bus mounted the curb and struck Ms Cameron before crashing into the building. Over the past couple of months, forensic crash investigators have been trying to examine what could have caused that crash. They've reviewed CCTV and video, and they actually closed Edward Street to try and reenact certain stages of the crash to determine what factors could have allegedly been involved.
Just days after Donald Trump's historic conviction, President Joe Biden's son is now on trial. Hunter Biden has pleaded not guilty to allegations he lied when buying a gun in 2018. A jury has been sworn in to hear the case, which could prove a distraction as his father campaigns for re-election. North America correspondent Barbara Miller was at the court in Wilmington, Delaware.
A First Lady and a mum, Jill Biden arrives at court to support her stepson. Hunter Biden faces 3 charges. Purchase of a gun in 2018. It's alleged he lied when he told the license dealer he wasn't addicted to drugs. The presidential election. Barbara Miller, ABC News, Wilmington, Delaware.
Supporters of Claudia Sheinbaum are celebrating her election as Mexico's first female president. Ms. Sheinbaum, a climate scientist and former Mexico City mayor, took about 60% of the vote. However, the markets have reacted unfavorably. Mexico's currency, the peso, fell by more than 3%, its worst drop in more than 3 years. The Election Commission of India has started counting a world record 642 million votes after the country's 6-week general election. Beginning in April, the ballot was held in scorching heat in many parts of the country, with temperatures rising to nearly 50 degrees Celsius in some north and northwestern regions. Exit polls predict Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be re-elected with an even bigger majority. The Chief Commissioner says it is a historic moment with the number of voters a world record. The High Court in Pakistan has overturned the jail sentence of former Prime Minister Imran Khan on charges of leaking state secrets. Mr. Khan was sentenced to 10 years in prison in January after being charged with leaking a classified cable sent to Islamabad by Pakistan's ambassador in Washington. It relates to his appearance at a rally in March 2022 when he waved a piece of paper that he says showed a foreign conspiracy against him a month before he was ousted from power in a parliamentary vote of no confidence. Mr. Khan will remain in prison to serve a sentence for another case. Alicia Barry's with us now for our business news. Hi, Alicia. So after 90 years, the P&O Cruise Liner brand is coming to an end. What does that mean for P&O customers?
The end of an era, Roz. Customers who have cruises booked on P&O are facing cancellation if their set sail date is from March next year or beyond that. So in 2025, P&O Cruises Australia brand will cease to exist and will be rolled into the Carnival Cruise Line brand. As a result, all the itineraries on the Pacific Explorer scheduled to sail after the 2nd of March next year was released, Roz, ahead of the GDP reading tomorrow.
Thanks, Alicia. 8 Tasmanian devils are leaving today for new homes in the United States. The animals will spend 30 days in quarantine before being sent to 4 zoos across the country. It's part of a programme aimed at raising awareness of the deadly devil facial tumour disease. David Sharp is the coordinator of the Tasmanian Devil Ambassador Programme and joins us now. Hi there, David. So tell us more about why these devils are going to the US.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, they are part of the Tasmanian Devil Ambassador Program, and this is a very vital and important program for us and our partnerships with our Ambassador Program zoos. But when they go, definitely.
David Sharp, thanks for talking to us today.
Thank you so much.
New research shows more than half of young people are delaying starting a family due to cost of living pressures. Reporter Stephanie Ferrier has more from Melbourne.
This research was conducted by data analyst Redbridge Group, and they found that 54% of 18 to 34-year-olds are delaying the idea of starting a family due to financial reasons and the increased cost of living. Redbridge Group surveyed around 2,000 young Australians, and they say that to help her business, which is less than a year old, be able to survive.
How do you get people to walk through the door? We're doing advertising and everything that we can. We just have to trust the process.
Which is even further indication that they're going to have to delay having a family with her husband, and she's really relying on the community support to help her business, which is less than a year old, be able to survive.
How do you get people to walk through the door? We're doing advertising and everything that we can. We just have to trust the process.
To 34 are delaying getting needed medical treatment for financial reasons. Just under half of them are delaying getting married, and around 70% are delaying buying their own home.
The Matildas have named their 18-member squad for the Paris Olympics. National Sport reporter David Mark was in Sydney for the announcement.
The Matildas coach Tony Gustafsson has selected a side which is rich on experience, although still quite youthful. There are just 18 players to take to the Olympic Games, led by captain.
Cloudy day in Melbourne and Hobart. The chance of showers in Adelaide. Rain forecast for Perth, and a sunny day in Darwin with a top of 31 degrees. You can keep up to date at news.abc.net.au and on ABC iView. Here are the top stories on ABC News. Israel has confirmed 4 more hostages abducted by Hamas last October are dead. They were among the 251 people taken by Hamas and other militants during the attacks on southern Israel on October the 7th. The men were reportedly killed earlier this year in central Gaza while the Israeli military was operating in the area. The Australian Defence Force is looking to foreign citizens to boost its ranks after struggling to recruit the personnel needed. New Zealanders living in Australia can apply from next month, and eligible permanent residents from the UK, the US and Canada can apply from next year. Applicants must have lived in Australia the year prior and not have served in the foreign military in the preceding 2 years. New research suggests the majority of young Australians are putting off starting a family due to cost of living pressures. Political research group Redbridge found 54% of people aged between 18 and 34 say economic conditions and climate change are 2 major reasons why they would delay having kids. And the Matildas have named their 18-member squad for the Paris Olympics, including 8 players heading to their 3rd straight games. The announcement comes off the back of the Tillies' 2-0 win against China in front of a sold-out Sydney crowd. Australia's first group game is against Germany on the 26th of July. 4 women have been killed by alleged gender violence since Saturday, and this brings the alleged overall number of women killed violently by a man this year to 34, 15 more than the same time last year. Thelma Schwartz is the Principal Legal Officer of the Queensland Indigenous Family Violence Legal Service and joins us now. Welcome, Thelma. So what's your view on the number of cases we're hearing about of late? Why has there been such an increase in case numbers?
That's a very good question.
This is Asia Now.
Hello and good afternoon. It is noon in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 a.m. in New Delhi and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Yasmin Yonkers. At this hour, vote counting gets underway in India after a massive week-long election. Incumbent Prime Minister Narendra Modi is widely tipped to win a historic 3rd term, while the main Congress-led opposition is hoping to upstage him and prove exit polls wrong. Israel announces the deaths of 4 more hostages held by Hamas. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pressed to seek a ceasefire deal that's divided his cabinet, with far-right members threatening to bring down the government should the proposal be accepted. Plus,
I'm out here live from Suntec Singapore, where the World City Summit is taking place. The conversations here ranging from some gloom and resignation to optimism. Interestingly, some cities may actually benefit from warming temperatures, at least in the short term.
So India has begun counting votes after its weeks-long marathon election to choose their new government. And you're looking at live pictures. Well, live pictures will be coming up soon. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is widely tipped to win a 3rd consecutive term in office, as exit polls predict a sweeping win for the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party. And the alliance of opposition leaders, known as the India Bloc, has rejected these polls, with the opposition party conversations unlikely to become more frequent due to human-driven climate change. Well, Sri Lankan officials have shut schools over floods and mudslides, which have claimed the lives of at least 16 people. The Education Ministry says it'll reopen them depending on how the weather develops. The deluge, triggered by heavy rainfall, has damaged more than 12,000 homes, forcing residents to seek shelter at evacuation centres. Sri Lanka's army says it's deployed search and rescue teams to help distribute food and other essentials to those affected by the floods. Reported across Sri Lanka since the weekend. Affected areas include the capital Colombo, as well as Ratnapura, Matara and Galle districts. And your Asia Business Update is next, including the opening market numbers in India, as investors in the region await the final results of the general elections that we've been looking very closely at. Plus, in the latest edition of CNA Explains, we take a closer look at China's aviation ambitions, with homegrown plane maker Comac aiming for global presence.
Growing pains for young fruit farmers in Malaysia.
A charity group in Uganda by the name Ata Breast Milk Community helps supply safe, clean breast milk to women who cannot produce their own. Among the beneficiaries, Caroline Ikendi, a Ugandan woman who has been warned by a doctor that one of her preterm babies had 2% chance of living and needed breast milk for their survival.
I even didn't know that breast milk can actually be kept for that long. I didn't know that you can give out breast milk. I didn't know. Because the first time I had it in the hospital, when they were like, since you don't have breast milk, we are going to get it from someone else. I'm like, how? No. People do alcohol. People have different diseases. But if my babies get what? Yeah. So when Ata came in and they were providing the breast milk from whoever mother, I was like, Banak. So this is real.
The group was founded by a woman whose baby died after a complicated childbirth. She started lactating and decided she would donate her milk to women with babies who could benefit.
The one thing I'll tell you which keeps me going when you wake up and you have a message from a mother, these are your babies. You know, that's a celebration for the whole team. You see babies you took care of when they gave milk, when they were say 500 or 700 grams, and they are 1 year, they are 2 years. That is a celebration for us. Those are the things we keep us moving.
Since the launch, more than 200 mothers have donated breast milk to support over 450 babies. According to Ata's record, 600 liters of milk have been delivered to babies in need during that entire period. The group receives calls from hospitals and homes with babies born too soon or too sick to latch onto their mother's breasts.
A mom who reached out to me through a friend of mine. She had triplets, and unfortunately one passed away. And she, through that depression, crying and everything, her body stopped producing milk. They reached out to me. They were like, we know you donate milk, but can you please help us? So I did help them. I even directed them to Ata. And now the babies are doing okay. And she always sends me a Mother's Day cake on Mother's Day. So she thanks me every day.
The group says they get more requests for support than it can now meet.
Nairobi, Kenya hosted the 59th annual meetings of the African Development Bank AFDB. High on the agenda was a reform of the global financial architecture to take into account climate-related challenges. The AFDB says that African countries should mobilize $213 billion annually from the private sector to bridge the climate financing gap by 2030. This is a priority for the bank's outgoing chairman.
Well, I think it's very important that we realize that the world we are in, we are custodians of it, not for ourselves, but for the future generations that are coming. And that future generation, they're already here. We have 477 million Africans, young people below the age of 35, from 15 to 35. We have to make sure that we are able to build climate resilience for Africa. We also have to make sure that we make the young people part of the solution, not just people that are depending on others. And that's why at the African Development Bank, we have a program that supports young people to set up businesses on climate adaptation, climate mitigation, to provide them financing to be able to do that.
The FDB's highest decision-making organ urged its shareholders to deepen discussions on growing the bank's callable capital, a key condition for maintaining its AAA rating, which is essential for borrowing on the financial markets. Over 3,000 participants attended the event, which ended Friday. Hello and a warm welcome to this edition of Business Africa with me, Ndayoka. The top stories this week. The economic community of West African states is at the crossroads as it witnesses the strengthening of the alliance of Sahel states. The economic stability of the region is at stake. Can the Black survive? We stay in Western Africa to take a closer look at the oil export dispute between Benin and Niger. The crisis is notably caused by Niamey's closure on the side of the border. Later on the program, we head to Cameroon, where the inauguration of a massive hydroelectric dam marks a turning point for the sub-region's energy landscape. ECOWAS is living a watershed moment as it navigates an epidemic of coups and witnesses the forging of new alliances. This has raised key questions on the region's economic stability and cooperation.
In a rapidly changing region, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, faces a series of challenges, raising questions about the bloc's ability to stay the course.
Destination Paris with France 24.
You're watching Daybreak here on France 24. I'm Haxi Myers-Belkin. Good to have you with us. Our top stories today. Vote counting is underway in India this Tuesday following the world's largest democratic exercise. Incumbent Prime Minister Narendra Modi projected to secure a rare third term in office, but early results suggest the country's opposition alliance is doing better than expected. 4 more hostages taken into Gaza by Hamas on the 7th of October are confirmed dead by the Israeli army. Families of dozens of remaining hostages gathering in Tel Aviv to demand a ceasefire deal that would secure the return of their loved ones. And 35 years after Beijing's Tiananmen Square massacre, Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te vows that the memory of the 4th of June will not disappear in a torrent of history. That amid tight security in Beijing and also Hong Kong, where vigils are outlawed. We'll be talking to our correspondent in Beijing, Yana Li, in a few moments. Great to have you with us. Also coming up in our press review today, a Star Wars collectible has become the world's most valuable toy, selling at auction for an extraordinary $500,000. Following a 6-week-long general election in India this Tuesday marks the start of a mammoth vote-counting operation across 543 constituencies. More than 640 million votes have been cast in total, and the count is expected to stretch into the night. Early trends indicating a win for Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Hindu nationalist BJP, although the opposition alliance is currently doing better than initially predicted. Karis Garland reports.
Regardless of what exit polls may suggest, India's election commission says the voter was the real winner in the country's marathon election. It praised
are being sealed right now. Sarah Jacob reporting live there from New Delhi. Thank you very much. 4 more Israeli hostages have been declared dead by the Israeli military, who say the group had been killed together months ago during an IDF operation in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. All but one had recently appeared in a Hamas video pleading to be released. Monday's announcement heightening pressure on the Israeli government to agree to a US ceasefire proposal that could secure the return of some 80 living hostages still held in Gaza and also an end to the 8-month-long war. Oliver Fowley has the latest.
Families of the hostages held in Gaza continue to protest.
The 4th of June this year marks 35 years since Beijing's bloody crackdown on dissent in Beijing's Tiananmen Square, when the Chinese army opened fire on student-led pro-democracy protesters. There's no definitive death toll, but hundreds and possibly thousands of people were killed. For years, commemorations of the massacre were banned on the mainland, but not in Hong Kong. That changed in 2019 with the city's clampdown on dissidents following huge anti-government protests in 2019, after which Hong Kong's once huge Tiananmen vigil also fell silent. Well, for more on this anniversary, we can cross now to our Beijing correspondent, Yana Li. Yana, the events of this day 35 years ago were heavily censored where you are. Can you give us an idea of just how that's done?
Well, security is tight and access limited to Beijing's Tiananmen Square this Tuesday. And in Hong Kong, on Monday evening, performance artist San Wu Chen was briefly detained after he was behind bars.
Yana Li reporting from Beijing on the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. Thank you very much. A collective of French charities have accused Olympics organisers of social cleansing in the run-up to the Games in Paris. According to a report by local authorities, 18,000 people have been moved out of Paris or the wider Ile-de-France region since April 2023. Selena Sykes reports.
Dozens of people, migrants and the homeless, arrive at this hotel in Orléans, around 130 kilometres south of Paris. They've been removed from the French capital and the wider Ile-de-France region ahead of the Olympics this summer. Authorities say such operations are a way of relieving pressure on emergency housing in Paris, but critics argue that...
A reminder now of our top stories here on Daybreak if you're just joining us. Vote counting is underway in India following the world's largest democratic exercise. Incumbent Prime Minister Narendra Modi projected to secure a rare third term in office, although early results suggest the opposition is doing better than expected. 4 more hostages taken into Gaza by Hamas on the 7th of October are confirmed dead by the Israeli army. The families of dozens of remaining hostages gathering in Tel Aviv to demand a ceasefire deal that would secure the return of their loved ones. And 35 years after Beijing's Tiananmen Square massacre, Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te vows that the memory of the 4th of June will not disappear in a torrent of history. That amid tight security in Beijing and also Hong Kong, where vigils are outlawed. It's time now for some business news. We can cross straight to Dubai to speak with Jamil Ahmad, Chief Markets Analyst at the G.
Thank you for watching and privilege of your time. This is Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Goodman. Have a good life.